Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hard Things podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess, and we are on episode 39. Episode maybe not so random, um, but it is going to be a good balance of chaos and order. If you think that phrase sounds familiar, you might have recently read Jordan Peterson or consumed one of his social media videos. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Kind of the ever-reaching chaos of space, this universe we live in, and the order and structure of time, and how time helps us to experience moments in the space we live in. I know I'm not the only person that thinks about this because the recent trend of, movies that are kind of all about the multiverse, different timelines, different universes. There's a reason that we think about these things. And that's because I think, in my opinion, our world can feel very small. Sometimes it feels small, a little bit restricting. Maybe we feel trapped, and also we don't feel heard. We feel so small that our little screams and yells and calls for attention, we feel like they go unheard. But again, this is just a feeling, and to me, that feeling is fear. I think it's every human being's fear that we are nothing, that we're not good enough, that we have nothing to contribute. And I can tell you this fear is necessary, but it's also not true. And I'm going to try to take you on a quick journey about why and how I've come to the faith that what I'm doing matters. It is maybe just a small part in the universe as it stands, but it matters. It all matters. Every single piece, every single person, people, place, thing, it all matters. So, what is this need for expansion? Why do we want to explore the universe? Why do we want to leave the place that we're in? Because right now, I know, at least for me, I feel powerful and fulfilled in this present moment, exactly where I am. And I can tell you I'm in a studio apartment in Dallas, and it's not necessarily glamorous, but it's mine. And I think the word that comes to mind is desire. This is something I've been thinking a lot about. I am attempting to write a series of books, and the very first book, I've had this idea for it for a long time, and I've had a really tough time putting my thoughts into words. But desire is the word that I think summarizes what I'm trying to get at. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today. And over the next couple weeks, I'll continue to extrapolate. And by doing so, I think I'm secretly writing my book through this podcast. So very excited. But there's a quote that stuck with me. I believe it was Naval Ravikant. And he said, desire is a contract that you won't be happy until you get what you want. But I think that is kind of the dark side of desire. Or maybe even a kind of a negative view of desire. I think we are ashamed and maybe ashamed of our desire. That's really the best way to say it. But what I've come to learn by engaging with my desires in life, the good and the quote unquote bad, things that are maybe a bit taboo. I found that desire is how God puts you in position to receive blessings. Whether you act in a way that harms others, aka bad, or a way that should benefit others, really no matter what you do, there is harm and benefit to almost everything you do, which is, that realization makes things a little bit upsetting, because even when you try to do good, there could be fallout. When you do bad, it could, that pain could push someone to become their best self and in the end, completely benefit the world. So this is where I've come to what desire is. What your desire is something that the creator, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, has put on your heart. And it's your job to express that, no matter how scary it is. Because when you do, there are a series of good and bad things that will happen as a result. And those things, as I've come to understand, are supposed to happen. They are a part of the timeline of the universe. And the ripple effects, they extend out far and wide. And if you do not use your desire, your passion, to pursue what you think you want in this moment, you're only hurting yourself and ultimately hurting others. In either case, you're going to hurt other people. And I think I've seen recently a quote about regret and people who are dying. And people who are dying, they almost never regret things they did. They regret things they didn't do. Those desires that went unfulfilled. And sometimes the lessons you get from chasing your desires are painful, and they put you through something that is undesirable. But the result of that, the person that you become as a result of that, is exactly who you're supposed to be. And I'm on kind of the backside of what I view as the first half of my life. Being 34, if I double my age, that's 68. If I live to be 68, that's fantastic. A lot of bonus time there. And I think the life expectancy not so long ago was about 34. So at this point, I've had enough, pain and sorrow and different things in my life to where I think I might not have had my last ego death, but I've had a few of them, and I know who I am and what I want, to the point where my desires, both kind of for good and for evil, I trust that they're going to bring forth the best possible version of me and also the best possible version of this world. Even if I hurt someone, it's going to push them to become the best version of themselves, should they so choose, and they should. One of my favorite movies is the movie Tenet. I'm not going to get into Tenet because I could talk for 3 hours and it probably wouldn't make sense to you. But one of the main themes is it's a physics concept called entropy. Basically, time's moving in one direction. The universe is becoming increasingly more chaotic, or just the chaos is reigning. When your metabolism in your cells is running running rampant, as it is all the time, the energy that you burn, it's that fire, that burns in all of us and in the world. It's the liquid hot magma in the Earth's core, transforming the Earth permanently. In a lot of cases, a lot of scientific chemical reactions are not reversible, and that's chaos in movement, in motion. And I think that can be scary, moving forward, making choices, some that you can't come back from. It's very scary, but that's our reality. Our reality is that things are moving forward, and we do have a choice. At the very least, we do have a choice always in any situation. So instead of being afraid of the chaos, you should embrace it. There's a great quote that I got off of a tea bag literally last night. And it came to me a moment when I was thinking about this podcast and what I would say. It says, "The unknown is where all outcomes are possible. Enter it with grace." So if you enter chaos with grace and keep your eyes open, you can seek out those outcomes that you want, the ones you desire, and then pursue them. And yeah, you might fall. You may not reach those desired outcomes, and once you do, they may not be permanent. But the person you become in chasing them will be more resilient, and when you get thrust back into that chaos, you'll be ready. And the more that you go after your desires, the more rewards you get. If you don't, you miss all the shots you never took. And I think a big piece of this, I always think back to, I feel like I'm starting to sound a little bit like Jocko Willink. Kind of the third concept of this episode is going to be what he calls decentralized command. But this is another big concept in the movie Tenet. So the protagonist of the movie, it's Denzel Washington's son, John David. And he's a really interesting character. I love this character so much. He doesn't even have a name in the film. He's a spy, a CIA agent. And then at the beginning of the movie, he basically gets tested by a deep state agency to see if he will give up information, and he doesn't. He chooses death. He eats a cyanide pill, which turns out to be a sedative, and he wakes up, and basically they were like, "Hey, congrats, you passed the test. Now you're a part of, stopping this other thing where someone is trying to reverse the flow of time, and it's going to basically destroy the universe. Congrats." And he wakes up, and really without questioning it, he just dives into this world. And the world, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, was designed by him. This beginning of his journey, he, in the future, is feeding pieces of information to himself as he knew that he needed them. So the metaphor there is that he is God, eventually ascends to be God and operates outside of space-time, and is able, through reversing entropy, to send messages and people and places and things back to himself. So he has this kind of decentralized, information. So say there's like 12 things he needs to know. He can send 2 at this specific time, 2 at another specific time, and just keep dropping those hints along the way. And dropping those hints, what happens is he's able to operate on what he knows, and he has faith because of the hints that he's received previously. He has faith that the path that these hints are going to lead him down is going to lead him to the ultimate goal. Doesn't know what the goal is. Really doesn't know anything beyond what's my next move, what's my next objective. And when you're operating in chaos, this is a very helpful mindset. Just like, what is the next thing I need to get done today? Today I woke up, I meditated, I made some eggs, I had tea, I had coffee, I did some reading, I tweeted, I made some posts on Instagram. Just all things I like to do to kind of stimulate my mind. And then I started meditating on this podcast and what needed to be said, and wrote down like a quick outline. Sometimes I do an outline, sometimes I don't. And I think the outlines make the episodes go a little bit better. Just a mixture of that little bit of controlled order mixed with the chaos of my brain where I ad-lib and go off key. I think that's where podcast is at the best. So again, decentralized command, or just focusing on the next objective. Now, I think where people get into trouble is when they focus on the next objective, but they never pick their head up to look around and understand what they're putting their faith in. And honestly, sometimes in this world, it's difficult to know what's worth it. Sometimes you have to aim at something and stay there for a while before you know if it's going to be worth it or not. So making mistakes is optimal and encouraged, but also quick pivots are necessary when you're dealing with uncertainty. So being decentralized, also being balanced with the ability to pick your head up off of that focused task and understand, is what I'm focusing on actually what I want? And just being courageous enough to ask yourself that question every day, because I can tell you what I've done in my life is focused on things that didn't matter, and then willfully put my head down and didn't ask myself that question because I was being a coward. I was upset about the potential of having to admit that I wasted time on something that isn't going to be my thing. As much as I love football, the game of football, and it gave me so much, I wasted a lot of time trying to be something that I'm not. Unless you're going to be an NFL player, playing college football for no money and just I had an 85% scholarship to Harvard, which is not nothing. But I wasn't in the right mind frame to take advantage of Harvard because I was playing football. So I was trying to drink from the fire hose, and it just wasn't working. I wasted a lot of time. And to be fair, that wasted time taught me a lot of lessons so I could become who I am right now. But looking back, I know in the future, I cannot do that. I cannot afford to waste that much time. Once you realize how precious your time is, you will find that courage to pick your head up in the chaos, in the uncertainty, and have the courage to look at what's happening. And it's one of the hardest things that I've had to learn how to do. And I think, to circle back to something I mentioned before, but faith is pretty much what podcast 38 was all about. Faith is something that is absolutely necessary. And I'll reiterate Martin Luther King quote from last time, but faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. And that is what I was talking about with the decentralized command. Taking that next step without knowing where the staircase goes. Is it going down? Is it going up? Who knows? But just knowing that you, yourself, God, the universe, again, whatever being you think is doing it, those breadcrumbs, those hints, where are they taking you? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And then having the courage to pay attention. Those two things really are at the core of living your life with heart. And that's honestly one of the most, valuable things that we have is our attention, our heart, our time. If you give your attention and love and heart and time to something or someone and it's not working, you owe it to yourself to keep it moving. Admit that you made a mistake. Or even, I'll say a lot of times, it wasn't a mistake. The past is perfect the way it was. I made the choices I made to get here. But spending additional future time on this would be a waste of time, knowing what I know now. Just having the courage to admit that and plunge yourself back into the chaos and uncertainty of life with grace has been probably the biggest lesson of my life at the end of 2024 and the beginning of this year, 2025. As you master these things, I like to think that, I think of myself a little bit as a steward of time. We're only here on this earth for a short amount of time. We do have a small part to play. But if you deem yourself the caretaker of your experience and the experience of your community, those people around you, taking care of the things around you, people, places, and things. If you do that, I believe there's no more honorable thing to do in life than to be a steward of what is. A steward of reality. And that's where desire can lead you astray. If you desire something that is not real, you have to bring yourself back to earth, back to reality, and realize this desire is not serving you. And that's not to say that all desire is that way, because it's not. There are both desires traditionally good and bad that will lead you down a path to glory. I can promise you I've done so many terrible things in my life and so many good things, and both have led me exactly to where I'm at now. And I've seen the magic of those things and how it affects other people. And although in the immediate short term it may have caused them pain or suffering, long term, when you see those people on social media, you kind of circle back. We're all alchemists deep down. We take this pain and we transform it into something, some type of liberation. So all the shame and all the guilt I think that I found that I had, I've let go. Because these desires of my own and of other people brought us to where we are. And right now is all we have. So the only thing you can do is amor fati. Love your fate. It may not be exactly what you envisioned, but it's yours. I didn't envision to be 34 years old in a studio apartment, hustling to become a chiropractor, having a podcast that only like a handful of people are listening to, having friends come and go Lovers come and go. None of it is necessarily according to my plan. I don't think anything's gone to plan. But I love where I'm at. And if I can let go, follow my desires first, and then let go of them when they no longer serve me, I can't even begin to imagine the blessings that are coming. I've already been so blessed. And I think, to end, the magnitude of the blessings you receive is a reflection of the blessings you give. And really the main blessing we can give is our love, our time, our attention, faithful service. Anything along those lines, you put it out there in the universe and it's going to come back to you multiplied. I have faith in that, and you should as well. If you don't have faith in it yet, I know you're going to get there. Until next time, I leave you with those words, and I'll see y'all again next week. Later.